Hello, InVarch. Thank you all for tuning in for today's live reading of InvArch Eduseries 5, the Supercharging Developers and Empowering Innovation with OSIF. Today I have with me AJ. He's going to be giving some commentary. We're going to be going back and forth on some of the things talked about here in OSIF and answering any questions that the community will have in the InVarch Lounge. So it is 12:45 when we said we would get started, so I'm going to go ahead and dive on into the first chapter. All right. So, welcome to the InvArch Eduseries, a series of articles introducing the significance of the InvArch network, explaining its technologies, and highlighting the dire problems it solves. We kick things off by describing the issue of IP rights plaguing the world today in the InvArch Eduseries 1, the IP war zone and innovation graveyard we live in. We followed up by introducing the solutions to these problems in the InvArch Eduseries 2, blockchain's bright light and a shining future for IP assets. We then elaborated on how InvArch will provide a powerful new vehicle for managing and transferring IP with the InvArch Eduseries 3, Web3's superhighway, and the future of transporting IP rights. And lastly, we explore some of the most powerful features of InvArch in the InvArch Eduseries 4, the SEPA revolution, and a new golden age for innovation. Moving forward with the InvArch Eduseries 5, supercharging developers and empowering innovation with OSIF, we look at how the InvArch network will revolutionize staking and set a golden standard for on-chain funding. For the sake of our video viewers, you'll see here we do have links to the IP sets and files, IP licenses, and IP tokens explaining them and what they are. But it's time to jump right into the first chapter. So, IP and startup funding, a desert of innovation and dying ideas. Take a look around you and see what you'll find is a world of incredible inventions that were once nothing more than ideas. Ideas are our most powerful and natural resource. They're the start of every innovation and solution. The great thing is that people, just like you, have great ideas every single day. The problem is that those ideas rarely end up thriving and becoming real. Revolutionary ideas to make the world a better place fade away every day and never make a difference. Let's review by clarifying what we mean by saying an idea. An idea is a thought or suggestion about a possible course of action. An idea could be the course of action for realizing an initiative or how an invention should build something. Such concepts include, but are not limited to, research intentions, applications designs, creative content, the list goes on. If you've ever thought of plans for a new type of mobile app, gasless vehicle, clothing line, video game, or anything exciting gadget, then you've had an idea. While there are always and thankfully exceptions, most of our readers likely can't say that their idea ever became a reality. Not every idea is a good idea. However, the free market can be a great and quick filter when given the ability to provide a feedback response to new inventions. While this says a lot for poorly developed or marketed innovations, it still begs one question to be answered. If the world is full of these fantastic ideas, why do most of them fail to exist? The answer is simple. Most individuals lack the skills and resources needed to realize their intellectual property and make it real. Ideas put the resources together with those ideas equals possible. A lack of startup finances can be an instant killer of an idea. Without capital to purchase tools, pay for labor, or spread awareness, intellectual property doesn't have the necessary nutrients to grow into an actual product. Even if an idea's returns and profit generation are substantial and apparent, future capital does no good in the present. Even though most ideas typically require just a tiny amount of funding to get kickstarted, this isn't a readily available resource, nor is it always safe to pursue. Another pain point can be marketing and building a community around a project. Community is a critical component of innovation. Not only is not only is a community of users required, but they also provide the ultimate filter for innovation and product success. The greater exposure to and feedback an idea can get from the world, the better. Without awareness of something's existence, it's difficult for an idea to take off. So I'm going to pause there and kind of give some commentary feedback. So a lack of ideas and resources, usually you have one or you have the other. And unfortunately, most people don't ever get the opportunity to put them together. This is going to be seeking a solution to that and making it simplified and streamlining it to the mainstream so that way ideas won't go just to the ash heap of history anymore. We'll actually have a place to promote them, and we'll have a community feedback system, where people will actually be able to support ideas that they want to see flourish, they want to see get funded, they want to see go further in history. And if there's something pitched on there that's really useless, the community feedback will show that too. It won't meet its goals, people won't want to support it. And innovations in and of itself will stick out on there enough to where the community, in a sense, really is choosing tomorrow, because we're choosing what we want to go forward with as far as innovations and inventions go. AJ, what are your comments or thoughts around the whole idea of this? Not to mention just like what they talked about with the community. Community is a critical component of innovation. For example, InvArch, if we didn't have an amazing community, nobody would know who we were. We have to have a community that is not only excited about our technology, they want to see it finished, they want to use it, and they are excited to see it complete and in its full stage of completion. Without those components, we wouldn't be here doing Eduseries for you guys and doing live readings and AMAs, those types of things. Those things wouldn't be happening because we wouldn't have the community support to keep on going. AJ, do you have any more comments on that?
Yeah, actually, well, this is a wonderful time for me to, I guess, let the community, uh, our immediate community here, know more about me a bit. So this the timing couldn't be more better. But this exact thing about having ideas, having resources to not just finance the idea, but to push that idea more to full realization, is basically like the gist of what really captivated me about the project. The second I realized how powerful and the greatest potential that InvArch will have, really brought me to the project and really captivated me. Um, it's uh, it's like that because, well, before I came into Web3, um, apart from working my day job in a major big bank in Canada, but I was also a digital marketer, obviously more for like Web2 stuff, so like e-commerce and whatnot. But I was also dabbling into more like the entrepreneurship, and I had so many ideas. Some were able to kind of get off the ground a bit more, and I went as far as building out like my own network, talking to potential funds and VCs in my local area, going to accelerator programs to try to actually put some substance behind my ideas and to really get more of a what's called in like entrepreneurship, a UVP, so a unique, sorry, not a UVP, but like a prototype of a product going. And but like I've had only maybe one or two of those really happen, sort of. But the rest were just into the idea brain graveyard, I would call it. And they say there's a famous quote that says, the graveyard is like has like the most value, meaning that there's a lot of people who died that are not buried, or cremated, whatever. But like 9 times out of 10, if you were to theoretically dig into their minds and to see what they ever thought of in their lifetimes, you would find a plethora of ideas that never ever got to see the light of day. So this is very powerful. OSIF, this protocol is very powerful. If you haven't dug in deep into this fifth article of the Eduseries yet, I highly suggest you do, because this will change everything when it comes to not just in general about innovation and furthering and bringing more concepts, blueprints to like a full realization. But I mean, it will literally change the game when it comes to just funding and resource allocation for
Kickstarting
ideas.
things, for example.
Yeah.
Getting funds off the ground to get running. Um, But yeah, no, I agree 100%, AJ. That's awesome. I'm pretty sure the community appreciates getting to know some of our backstories. I think they always like getting insight on that, so that was awesome. Um, Going to go ahead and dive back on in. Okay. So, a lack of startup finances can be an instant killer of an idea. Without capital purchase tools, pay for labor, or spread awareness, intellectual property doesn't have the necessary nutrients to grow into an actual product. Even if an idea's returns and profit generation are substantial and apparent, future capital does no good in the present. Even though most ideas typically require a tiny amount of funding to get kickstarted, this isn't a readily available resource, nor is it also the safest way to pursue. I already read all of this. No. Okay, yeah, I'm done here. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. Another point can be that. Yeah. Finally, sharing your idea must be considered with great scrutiny. Take the classic story of Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, who had an original idea for a social platform. They had the vision, the capital, and access to community exposure, but they lacked the technical skills to develop their IP. They turned to a young Mark Zuckerberg, shared their idea with him, and that was the last constructive conversation they shared with him. Zuckerberg realized their idea under his name and vision, becoming the known founder of Facebook, or now known as Meta Platforms Incorporated. Without a secure environment to disclose and develop their idea, their intellectual property was a fully exposed and unprotected asset. It's easy to have a great idea, but finding the resources that are greatly needed to bring that idea to fruition are often hard to find, and there must be a better way. How about this? An environment where individuals can store their ideas, an environment where users have access to seek funding for their intellectual property, an environment where ideas can be shared with the world, an environment where community feedback drives the innovation, an environment where immutable and transparent IP attribution can exist, and an environment where IP exposure and verified identities track exposure. The issue is that with limited technology and infrastructure in place, such as an environment is challenging to provide. However, over this time, the world has witnessed the introduction and adoption of blockchain based solutions such as smart contracts, NFTs, and DAOs. They are powerful innovations realized by the InvArch network and a key significant funding. Key significant. Sorry, I just lost my place. The issue is that with limited technology and infrastructure in place, such an environment is challenging to provide. Over time, we are able to introduction and adoption of blockchain-based solutions such as smart contracts, NFTs, and DAOs. Growing on, reinventing, and improving these technologies further are powerful innovations realized by the InvArch network. A key and significant component of the InvArch network is the on-chain innovation funding protocol. The OSIF protocol fuses three different funding raising methods and implements them on-chain, trustless, and transparently. These methods include IP staking for community support-based fundraising, IP farming for establishing price discovery, token liquidity, and user bases, and IP donations for community supported and charity fundraising grant initiatives. A secure network for funding, collaborating on, and developing IP was impossible as recently as 10 years ago and challenging to provide as recent as just 1 year ago. With the InvArch Network's on chain innovation funding for IP and the eventual launch of the OSIF Center for IP, nothing is impossible anymore, and a brighter tomorrow is an inevitable future. So I want to go ahead and pause again really quick. AJ, in regards to when you were first told, kind of closed behind the doors about OSIF, I can remember some of the reactions was pretty um, significant. We were pretty excited, but we didn't know what it would look like. Where we're at so far in development, I know we can't go into a lot of details regarding OSIF. However, where we're at right now and what we've already shared with the community, what are some things that you think are going to be made possible, like faster, more revolutionary, so to say, thanks to OSIF being available now?
Well, I mean, I would say you take the example of just regular Web2 startups and the products that they're building, even the services. So some are, SaaS-based companies, stuff like that. SaaS stands for software as a service. So a lot of those projects and a lot of those products that are very novel and very revolutionary, um, I think we'll definitely see a lot more fruition, more in the Web2 traditional analog world. When it comes to blockchain projects and Web3 and overall like Sama, insane, insane innovation. I think things will happen a lot more quickly. From a more marketing standpoint, I think, which is funny because like I've actually been working on an article about this, but like with OSIF and more of the community component of it, if like all of you haven't realized, blockchain and like specifically like blockchain projects and I would say more so in Sama than anything, than any other like ecosystem, but this has it has changed the way that we operate, the way that the projects operate. It has changed the marketing game for real. We go from more of the Web2 marketing where it's like, okay, so you have to first build your product, have like some sort of prototype, and then you go out, you find the funding, you start to build a community. But even before you start building a community, you have to run surveys, you have to run like digital Google surveys, you have to distribute them and find out, does this have a place in like the market in the industry? Whereas when it comes to blockchain and like more specifically Sama projects, that happens more quickly. The community is like built first. It's even like you can even just propose a single white paper, and like if it's good, you'll have a community like less than a couple months in even. So I think even the growth of projects will happen more quickly than we realize, as well. So.
Yeah, I think OSIF will be a very very powerful tool for also just for like other DApps and things like that are wanting to get started. Um, Having the ability to get like literally community based support funding, those types of things. That's we've had like traditional things like that in Web 2, where it's not as like governed, so to say, by the community. But that's the beautiful thing about Sama as well, is everything's really kind of focused on governance and making sure that this is what everybody, the majority, wants. So I think having an innovation hub for that kind of thing to take place, where people are able to say, "Hey, I want to support this idea," and then say, counter that example. There's an idea that goes on there that's just really poor. I wouldn't necessarily say it's going to get completely shot down, but it's going to get a lot less support from the other obvious candidates who are doing more to arouse community support. But okay, going into the next chapter, IP staking and the future of incentivized development. Let's evaluate what we just touched on previously. A lack of startup finances can be an instant killer of an idea. Without capital to purchase tools, pay for labor, or spread awareness, intellectual property doesn't have the necessary nutrients to grow into a real product. Tackling this barrier and alleviating funding pain points right from the start, the InvArch network introduces a blockchain powered IP staking feature. IP staking allows users to propose their intellectual property, stored as an IP set, to the InvArch network and the world, making them available to receive community feedback and network funds. So, how exactly does all this work? In a nutshell, it is a no barrier entry method for sharing ideas with the world and fueling funding. It provides an immediate, immutable, and transparent platform for exposure, receiving community feedback, and then receiving funding allocations based on the feedback received. A no barrier entry method for sharing ideas with the world and fueling funding. InvArch builds on democratically allocating on chain funds and integrating the practice with the process of network staking, something first showcased through an implementation known as DApp staking by the A-Star network. Instead of individuals selecting a network collator to stake their network tokens toward in exchange for staking rewards, this process is circumvented and replaced with the practice of instead choosing a DApp or smart contract to stake towards. By staking to a DApp, users allocate their voting weight, their share of the network tokens compared to others, toward that project. Finally, fees generated by the network are then proportionately reallocated towards staked dApps depending on the total weight of their votes. Interested readers can read more about dApp staking on the A Star below. So on the actual article, we do have a link to A-Star's benefits of dApp staking and how to dApp stake on A-Star. InvArch take things a bit further by unleashing these funding and essential income opportunities to all intellectual property components, creative works, and app/dApp development, and making them available during the earliest possible phase of production ideas. Individuals will have the power to expose their IP and welcome funding opportunities. Still, they will also be able to retain and achieve essential income support even after their IP is realized. It's important to note the InvArch network is a cross-chain ecosystem consisting of the InvArch parachain on Polkadot and Tinkernet on Kusama. The InvArch Tinkernet will be deployed as a parachain on the Kusama network and provide an experimental, first-to-market environment featuring incubation, acceleration, collaborative development, and testing for IP assets and dApps. IP stakers will be able to receive funding in the form of Tinkernet's native token, Tinker. The InvArch Tinkernet will have a separate treasury fund that is trustlessly self-managed and regenerating by siphoning a share of Tinker from transaction fees that incur through the Tinkernet. Tinker holders can stake their tokens to the network by selecting 0 to even multiple staked IP sets. To avoid any misleading feedback from uninformed community, individuals aren't forced to allocate reward weights towards IP sets. However, for absolutely free, any and everyone who stakes their Tinker will have the power to direct funding towards IP sets they support. The native token of InvArch Tinkernet is Tinker. The Tinker token is the lifeblood fueling innovation, development, and transactions on the Tinkernet parachain. Tinker can be used to mint IP assets, staked for high interest yields, bonded to IPTs to establish token value, vote on governance proposals, cover transaction fees, and will eventually be available to collateralize for stablecoin minting. A minimum Tinker balance is required for a user to participate in IP staking. The InvArch parachain will be deployed on the Polkadot network and will provide, among other novel features, a secure best to market environment for community supported and battle tested IP assets and dApps. IP stakers will be able to receive funding in the form of the InvArch network's native token, Varch. So before I go on any further, I do want to highlight like there are some significant differences. Varch, we are having our cousin chain launch on Kusama. Before it launches on Kusama, before we have the crowd loan for that, we're going to be launching the testnet, the standalone testnet for it on the 23rd this month. So you guys can get ready for that, get excited. But I believe Tinkernet is going to be a very, very powerful add-on to the Canary network. Not only can they expect chaos, they can now expect innovation as well going on their network. And I think that's going to be not only a benefit for Tinkernet, but I think that's going to be a benefit for the entire Sama ecosystem overall. What are your thoughts currently on Tinkernet and its current development, AJ?
Well, I mean, the best way to and the most simplest way to understand it is like just like when you develop a product in Web 2 in the traditional world, you want to have a prototype, and then after however many months or sometimes years in R&D and like further innovation, you then eventually have like the best product to either reintroduce into the market or to completely just introduce it to the market. So, to simply put, I mean, think about Tinkernet is your first to market environment. So that's where, let's say, you have an idea for a dApp, and you don't want to go full house, or I don't know what the saying is, but you don't want to just go straight into Polkadot. But like, let's say you still want to test it out, see if there are like any bugs, any improvements, or you want to altogether do those things plus make sure that your community is on par, everything like that. But the Tinkernet will be an environment for more of a first to market basis, whereas with InvArch as a parachain on Polkadot, that's your best to market environment. So those are my thoughts.
All right, thank you so much, AJ. Once again, I'd like to reiterate, guys, if you guys do have questions, please shoot them in the InvArch Tech Lounge. We will be watching to answer them if any pop up. But with that being said, I'm going to continue on with the library. Okay, so that was the InvArch TinkerNet, so I already read that part. Like with the TinkerNet, the InvArch parachain will also have a separate self-managed and regenerating treasury fund. Varch holders aren't forced to stake toward an IP set just like on the TinkerNet. However, it's important to note that only community-approved IP sets may be listed for IP staking. Different from the TinkerNet, all staked IP sets on the InvArch parachain receive at least a minimal share of allocated network funds. To a slighter or lesser degree, community's feedback still influences the deviations of reward allocations. Additionally, if made available to do so, as a staked IP set on InvArch is used by the community more and more, this too influences the deviations of reward allocations. Remember, an IP set can be examples such as smart contracts slash dApps, graphic designs and content, music beats and songs, on-chain applications and software, or even a repository of a code framework. The native token of the InvArch parachain is Varch. The Varch token is the currency of innovators. Varch experiences the same utility cases as the Tinker token on the InvArch TinkerNet, plus additional empowerments such as powering cross-chain authentication (XCA) for IP assets and NFTs across Web3. Also, Varch holders experience other governmental authority and elect on which realized IP sets to onboard for IP staking rewards. Excuse me. The InvArch network's TinkerNet will provide permanent utility and service as the square one for IP incubation and acceleration. TinkerNet will be interoperable with a flourishing ecosystem of tech advanced parachains and be among the chaotic few to experience the most advanced features releases in Web3 before anyone else, all while acting as the experimental testing ground of the broader InvArch system. The InvArch parachain on Polkadot will provide the final milestone for the evolutionary process of IP and innovation, along with the most secure, stable, and tested environment possible for realized products of IP development so that they may thrive and be utilized. Proven and developed products of staked IP sets can graduate to the InvArch parachain. The community can also vote to onboard first-time, yet post-beta IP sets. In tandem, with the InvArch parachain being the cross-chain authentication powerhouse of Web3, all of these features are provided on top of the inevitable foundation for the future of the TinkerNet, the Polkadot Relay. Okay, so before I dive into the next chapter, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about how significant this all is. So TinkerNet, as AJ said, is acting as like a kind of first to market environment for ideas. Now, if your idea on there is obviously good enough, it's going to, as I just read, it's going to get to move on or graduate to the InvArch parachain. So if somebody, like for example, doesn't know if their idea is going to kick off, but they have the passion behind it and they want to see it kick off, and they start posting about it, they start doing like white paper, uh, they get listed in Kusama. They're trying to do the TinkerNet, trying to get on-chain innovation funding, all these things. That's super significant because they'll be able to then, if they do receive that support, if they do receive that funding, they'll be able to, so as we said in the article, graduate onto the InvArch parachain where they have more options and they get even like XCA, they get that opportunity now for their IP as well. So I think that's very significant. AJ, do you have any closing comments on that?
Yeah, so just to reiterate, it even says here, TinkerNet will provide permanent utility and service as the square one for IP incubation and acceleration. So that kind of goes back into what I've been saying, where in the traditional world of things, you would deal with a lot of incubators and accelerators to further your product or more so your idea on. And TinkerNet is more of just that on-chain blockchain solution for that, which is revolutionary. Like it's incredible what will be what this will be what this will become. Sorry, and I just personally cannot wait to see the sea of ideas that will be on TinkerNet and then later on InvArch as like a parachute as like the environment to really further more of these best to market ideas. So
Yeah, I'm super excited to see, like you said, not only what it does for those people's ideas, but what it does for just society as a whole. Because some people have some really, really, really credible and revolutionary ideas. For example, InvArch was a pretty revolutionary, crazy idea, and somebody had to have it first, and they had to set the ball in motion. And here we are, trying to set up the protocols to allow anybody to have a good idea, protect it, and then get funding for it, kickstart it. So um, it's pretty revolutionary to see how these things work and how things roll on this network, as well as how things are going to start going in the future, thanks to things such as the InV4 protocol, OSIF protocol, and these revolutionary new opportunities that we're going to be providing to absolutely anybody. Diving on into the next chapter, IP farming and IP donations, revolutionary fuel for innovation. While IP farming is an exciting thing for the world to look forward to, the specific preferences behind how, when, and why funds are raised are not a one size fits all type of deal. The particular needs of entrepreneurs and innovators are diverse and transform from case to case, which is why the design of the OSIP protocol realizes the most advanced and flexible on chain funding features ever developed. Jointly, there are two different pathways for funding that entrepreneurs, inventors, and scholars can use instead of IP staking. In addition to the method of IP staking, there are two other revolutionary staking methods available for Varch and Tinker holders to choose from if they would prefer. These staking methods are known as IP farming and IP donations. IP farming brings a platform to establish liquidity, user base, and decentralized governance needs for startup endeavors by allowing controlled crowdfunding campaigns to be launched and managed entirely on chain. IP set owners can define a minimum and maximum range of network tokens they would like to raise, the total percentage of the rate of pegged IP tokens they will provide in exchange, and the utility of those IPTs. To protect participants in IP farming and help provide a litmus test for successful IP development, the InVarch network scrutinizes the process of IP farming. A minimum number of Varch or Tinker defined by each network must be raised within a minimum amount of block time. Additionally, to ensure transparency, security, and immutability of agreements on the InVarch network, when the IP tokens that are available to farm on an IP set also decentralize the governance and control of that IP set, a minimum percentage of those tokens, which succeeds in establishing a truly decentralized body, must be allocated for community farming rewards. This is to prevent an IP set founder from hijacking the governance and future of an IP set against the founding terms agreed upon by its community. During this process, when holders of the Varch token on InVarch and holders of the Tinker token on the Tinkernet go to stake their tokens to the network, they can allocate some or all of their staking rewards towards a farmable IP set of their choosing. Users can also elect to bypass staking and directly contribute towards an IP farming campaign. Allocated tokens are stored on chain in a temporary lockbox. This lockbox only opens under one of the following three conditions. The IP farming hard cap is reached in the event one was set, the IP farming time expires, and at least the soft cap was raised. The IP farming time expires and less than the soft cap is raised. When either the first or the second condition is met, the IP tokens being farmed are then minted and allocated towards their proper destinations, which may include the founders or legal owners of an IP set, community members who farm the IP set, additional addresses clarified and defined before the farming campaign, and even on chain treasuries that exist natively within their IP set. Simultaneously, funds earned through IP farming are then released to their owners. Suppose the third condition is met and an IP set fails to achieve a successful IP farming campaign. In that case, any tokens and staking rewards allocated toward it during the campaign will be returned to the addresses from which they were originally sent. This way, individuals who farm on the network don't lose out on their staking rewards, and token contributors receive a full reimbursement without the need for a third party to enforce the prudence of these processes. So just to stop, I'm going to pause there for just a moment, talk about IP farming and why it's truly very significant. Um, as it says, this is another method for getting things off the ground and running. Um, it's another new staking method for Varch and Tinker. This process will allow a lot of incredible things to take place. I personally think IP donations are a little bit better. I'm going to get ready to go into them. They're my favorite. Um, but I do like how it does have three set conditions, and the third condition, I do like how it takes into consideration failed campaigns and protecting those members who contributed to failed campaigns. But at the same time, it's just, I think IP farming is revolutionary as well, as one of these three staking methods that we've developed. AJ, what are your thoughts specifically on IP farming in comparison to just IP staking or IP donations, which is what we're about to go into?
Yeah, well, I mean, it says it right here. Like individuals who farm on the network, they don't lose out on their staking rewards, and I think that's huge. I think like if you staked and are expecting something, but it didn't really pan out, you don't necessarily lose out on that, and that can be seen in other instances throughout Web3, and more like staking situations. And also with those that contribute tokens receive a full reimbursement without the need for a third party. So it's basically just a more seamless process that you'll be able to go through as a token contributor versus maybe you'll have to go through like a third party, or and like wait X amount of business days, and like in here you don't really have to. So
Right.
yeah, those are my thoughts.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. Um, Going to go into the next segment of IP donations. This is the one that I think is arguably the most exciting, in my opinion. IP donations are the final piece of the OSIF pie. IP farming allows users to receive a reward or payment in the form of one fungible asset to provide a different fungible asset at a particular exchange rate. IP staking allows users to either receive or allocate rewards at no cost to one another. IP donations allows users to either receive or contribute towards the funding and support of on-chain grants that are funded via on-chain donations, a pure of heart and possibly even tax-deductible approach to bringing philanthropy-style funding opportunities to the entire world. Whether it is a funding proposal to support medical research initiatives on longevity, a funding request to launch a global nonprofit initiative focused on providing the most robust online center for free education, or a funding request for a child seeking materials to build their science fair project, they will all have a trustless, open, and transparent platform where they can be showcased to the world and funded by its people. So, how does this common good opportunity work exactly? We thought you'd never ask. Projects seeking an IP donation can freely seek them. Specific information is collected from those seeking funding this way, which are likely to require, or at least be expected by the community, proof of identity that is provided using a decentralized identity solution, example, Kilt Protocol. This way, individual donors can perform due diligence when looking into the backgrounds and legitimacy of those seeking funding. Projects can customize the requests also. For example, a project could seek to attain $50,000 in funding and could request these funds for immediate use. Another project could strive to raise $30,000, $10,000 to start, and then an additional $20,000 that be released after successfully delivering on their defined milestone. A third project could seek $100,000 throughout several milestone deliveries with no immediately available funds. A fifth project could elect not to have a fundraising cap and instead establish a permanent channel for accepting on chain donations. InvArch network holders who stake their tokens, along with the options for IP staking and IP farming, will be able to elect to utilize the IP donations mechanism. When staking in the IP donations model, users can allocate some or all of their staking rewards towards an IP set and funding requests that they support. Like with IP farming, users can also elect to bypass the staking process and provide funding directly towards an IP set. This way, donations can be either steady or instant. Funds can Funds can are locked up for as little as approximately 1 day before being released to an IP set seeking IP donations. They could be held until a certain amount is raised and only if within a certain amount of time, like with IP farming, or funds can be locked until a developmental milestone is either reached or failed. Depending on the terms of the funding agreement, any tokens that are locked during the time of a failed fundraising attempt or a failed milestone deliverable will be returned to the original providers unless otherwise agreed to in the fundraising agreement. Imagine the Web3 Foundation grant program or any other grants program. Now imagine the grants program taking place on chain. Now imagine a decentralized Web3 Foundation grant program run by the community with a flexible funding pathways and available for any to support. Whether it's a wave of 100,000 supporters providing $1 each, or a single supporter interested in providing $100,000. Entrepreneurs and future innovators will have untethered access to pursue these funding solutions. Donated funds are provided to the InvArch OSIF Center, where a charitable receipt is provided in the form of an NFT, if applicable, tax filing purposes. If funds ever get returned during a campaign, then the NFT receipt will be appended to reflect and only reflect the accurate information. Funds provided to the InvArch OSIF Center are then transparently transferred to the proper recipient address. These funds are delivered in full by the InvArch network, but these funds can also be tracked, allowing the InvArch Parachain and Tinkernet to provide a foundation for open source donations. What's the significance? Ask Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, the Boring Company, and the wealthiest person on the planet. 2% of Elon Musk's wealth could solve world hunger, says director of UN Food Scarcity Organization. He openly challenged them and said if they can describe this on Twitter in a thread on exactly how $6 billion will solve world hunger, I will sell Tesla stock right now and do it. This one individual is apparently primed to pour $6 billion towards donations. That's a larger market cap than most cryptocurrencies. What's holding him and others back from following those on those donations is trust, because he said it must be open source accounting so the public can see precisely how the money is spent, which is, I think, a very, 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 very fair ask. Thankfully, blockchain is the trust solution. Open source accounting and transparent charitable contributions and donation derived financing tracking is just around the corner. If you can describe precisely how $6 billion would solve world hunger on the Twitter threads above, apparently Elon Musk will sell Tesla stock and go for it. Whether that proves true or not, one thing is evident. If people knew that how their donations were being spent, then they would be more open, supportive, and willing to be back for more initiatives. An immediate problem is withholding billions of dollars, but that's okay. The InvArch network solved it, and it's coming to a world near you soon. So I'm going to pause again and just talk about IP donations. So the main reason I was so excited about IP donations is because it's a way to, as it says, it's the final piece of the OSIF pie. It allows them to either receive or allocate rewards at no cost to others. IP donations allows users to receive or contribute the funding and support of on-chain grants that are funded via on-chain donations, a pure of heart approach to bringing philanthropy-style funding opportunities to the entire world, as it says in the Eduseries. I think this method alone will be very significant in many ways, not just like charitable, but that's the more route that I'm thinking of. Having people who are donating to support, for example, like world hunger initiatives, things to solve world hunger, things to provide clean water access to people without it, things like this. And IP donations can seriously bootstrap these types of things for long term. And I think that's very significant. Any closing comments from you, AJ, on that chapter and IP donations?
Yeah, basically just like you said, but I feel like uh, with with the IP donations section or sector of the OSIP protocol, I think it would be the most initial attractive piece of the OSIP protocol, let alone the InvArch network. Because yeah, like I mean, donations, like that's the problem with traditional donations and like the traditional protocols in place so far, is that okay, like where exactly is my money going? I mean, I know that quite a few major charitable organizations have been changing their policies, and I just donated somewhere for like a blood research, and they told me exactly where each and every dollar is going. But not a lot of organizations do that. But with IP donations and again with the whole like OSIC protocol, um, people will be able to. They don't have to trust. It's going to be trustless, um, um, and they can really just believe and affirm and like rely on the fact that, okay, like I am actually going to contribute to something that's meaningful, to something that's going to change the world. Um, and it's also like it provides choice as well. I mean, like yes, like it's trustless, but also like you do have a choice of whether your donation is more going to be allocated to a certain cause or like a project in a more steady formation, or is it going to be instantly, which I think is significant as well. So,
Right.
and also, by the way, I also want to mention we have our very own head of ecosystem development, Minangus, in this live call right now. Minangus, do you have anything to say about IP donations or anything general to the community?
Hey everyone, just dropping to say hi to everyone. It's actually it's one of the biggest things, as you know, you both mentioned, when it comes to you know not only getting the money but also donating the money, and like our protocol makes it super easy and seamless to do that. And you know, with those examples, we're just scratching the surface of what could be done, like based on our needs and Maslow pyramid, so to speak. We all want to get something, but it's also a great thing where like you can give something back, be it blood donation, as you just mentioned, but something meaningful that you can really put on it. I would say actually we just chatted with AJ in the background about Kickstarter, kind of thing. But for me, that's like more, that's really empowering, and it's like Kickstarter on steroids kind of thing, where like,
Yeah.
and it goes both ways. It's not only just giving the money just for the sake. It's on the blockchain, it's on chain donation, and I think it's going to be super powerful. Imagine if InvArch has direct partnership with some biggest NGOs that can really change the world. For that matter, you just plug it. Yeah, it's massive. And the whole Eduseries, I know that I'm jumping in a bit late, but like the whole Eduseries is more like this fifth edition. It's kind of, I would say, pretty easy to understand already. If all of you guys have read, all four, or listened to Casey reading this and us, chatting about it, tweeting about it, it's kind of super easy to understand. But at the same time, all of these three parts are, when they work all in synergy, it's great. Like, because it has both push and pull when it comes to the power of either you stake or you farm or you donate. It's yeah, it all comes together really, really nicely, and it's just one of the three protocols. So lots of things. I can't just put everything and stress this enough.
Yeah, like I said, my favorite, once again, just to reiterate, is the IP donations, because like just being I've heard several nightmare stories where some charitable organizations, unfortunately, they're not open source, right? So people are donating to them, and then they find out through some court case that a lot of their funding that they had been donating to this was misused or taken in the wrong way. Those types of things. So I will say, because of that reason, everyone that I know a little bit personally in my life is a little bit hesitant to donate to charity. They support the initiatives that the charities are proposing, but they don't support not knowing where their money's actually going. So something like this is, as we've stated already, absolutely revolutionary, because it's so trustless. You know where everything is going, you know what you're supporting, and you don't have to worry about it. So that's the number one thing that was like the kicker for me out of OSIF, was the IP donations, because it solves, once again, that problem of trust. But going on into the last chapter, the future with OSIF, supercharged possibilities for bringing ideas to life. Suppose a project is interested in building a community presence, getting feedback, and establishing enough income to steadily fuel development or cover its initial startup costs without asking individuals for their money. In that case, then IP staking is the way. Suppose a project is interested in building a community presence and getting feedback and needs to establish a market of users, testers, and voting members, or wants to decentralize their IP by offering IP tokens in exchange for said users contributing a stake towards the project. In that case, IP farming is the way. If a project and its mission isn't necessarily focused on community building, such as research and nonprofit initiatives, but believes that it requires a larger amount than IP staking can provide with a respective time frame, and are not in a position where it makes sense to establish a market for liquidity or users, then seeking IP donations is the way. This versatility will allow the benefits and opportunities of the OSIF protocol to fit the needs of more users, fund more projects, and have a positive impact on more people than any other network in the world. When you build revolutionary solutions focused on empowering individuals and making a profoundly significant positive impact on the world, new worlds become possible. This is the world of tomorrow, the future that the world deserves, and it's only a glimpse of the days ahead. The future will be a profoundly better place for ideas, and the IP landscape will be significantly different from now, how it is understood today. This is the future powered by the InvArch network. Looking towards the future and the next InvArch Eduseries, while the InV4 protocol provides a standard and asset structure that is just as flexible as it is robust to provide the most effective vehicle possible for IP, it's the OSIF protocol that helps bring them to life. On-chain innovation funding can sometimes get a bit overwhelming, but the short takeaways are that in addition to the power of the following three mechanisms, they all exist on-chain and realize a new world of startup fundraising that has the ability to positively impact the globe. No big deal. IP staking for community support-based funding. IP farming is for establishing price discovery, token liquidity, and user bases, and IP donations is for community-supported and charity-funded grant initiatives. The OSIF protocol is more than DeFi and different from the world of Seeponomics and IP finance. OSIF is the foundation for powering the security of Web3 while empowering all of its participants, unlike any other ecosystem. With INV4 assets, this is a utility for anyone and everyone, a future cornerstone that changes the way the world works forever. Directly empowering individuals, helping them communicate with the world with new and meaningful ways, and unlocking more efficient methods to generate real wealth in tangible ways. The INV4 protocol combined with the OSIF protocol achieves this in new ways, and with that, success for the InvArch network is an inevitable byproduct. That's what matters and the only thing that should matter. There's a lot to talk about in the next chapter in our exciting saga, the InvArch Eduseries 6, Accelerated IP Development and the Tinkernet Collaborative Proving Ground. Things are about to get a little chaotic as we explore the bleeding edge and future experimental providing ground for IP. The beginning of the every next great innovation is here. All right, guys. So that finishes up the live reading for InvArch Eduseries 5. I want to thank everybody for being here. If you had any questions, please, while we're making closing statements, post them in the InVarchitech Lounge. I don't see any questions there as of now. Once again, I'd just like to reiterate, thank everybody for being in attendance. We had a lot of people here 20 minutes early. That was really cool to see. And we've had a lot of people join in while we've been on this call. So I want to thank all of you guys for your patience and your attentiveness to be on, just be ready for these impromptu live readings. We try to make them fun. We try to make them sudden and unexpected. So I appreciate everyone who's always ready and keeping their eye on the chats for those types of things to take place. Does Madungus or AJ, you guys want to give a closing statement?
Yeah, so we'll be having lots of announcements as we previously teased. There will be lots of new things coming on with the testnet launching very soon. I guess that's already the next week. We just had internal discussions about rewards, incentivizations. Everything is still in private, so nothing to be officially announced, but we have some amazing rewards coming up for the ambassadors. So it's a great time to be an ambassador at InvArch and the community member. So you'll be the first ones to hear the news. But really excited. The next Eduseries will be, I think, maybe only in 2 weeks. But I guess in the meantime, while we are waiting for the next just reading series, we might do some AMAs and some meetups. I know that Mikhail will do with the Russian-speaking community. He will do a sync, I think tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I do believe he said that was tomorrow.
But basically, we'll fill up that vacuum. We'll have some exciting stuff. We'll be working on getting the feedback and improving the ambassador program itself. Lots of new people are in the pipeline, waiting to join the community as well. So basically, we'll try to cater to everyone's needs, and really excited for the future and upcoming events, partnerships, trips. You'll see us live in different conferences very soon. Really excited about that. AJ, you want to add something?
Yeah, just more so obviously for our community here. I want to propose a little challenge, especially with now that we have this InvArch Eduseries out and how powerful the OSIP protocol is. I would say, as a challenge, maybe once a day or once a week, like try to tell at least one person about not just InvArch in general, but something that really interests you. Like, for example, like with the OSIP protocol, like again, we talked about how powerful this is, how it can, when it comes to IP staking, staking your contributions in, like for token contributors, all the way to IP farming and IP donations, where like really charitable initiatives can really come to life and ultimately change the world. That's what interests me about it. But I challenge all of you, speak to one person and tell them, hey, like, have you heard about this? Or if you know a person that's in the, I don't know, in like the VC funding space, or if somebody that's an inventor in like your local area, or is there a business owner that wants to, or someone, or some kind of entrepreneur that, is like constantly seeking to improve things, right? Like, tell them about InvArch, tell them about a particular protocol that you think would best interest them, because this isn't just, we're not just another blockchain protocol trying to raise funds and trying to further just like crypto interests and like initiatives. This is technology being built. This is more of a revolutionary mindset that's that we're trying to really grow and have it become fruitful. Not for the sake of growing a token. It's for the sake of really changing the innovation space, changing the way that intellectual property is protected and therefore also innovated further on. So I really challenge the community, go out and tell people about it. Really pique people's interest, or if anything, just challenge them, and like ask them the question, like, what do you think about this? How can this improve your business? How do you think will this project really improve, a way that like you would get funding for example. So yeah, that's my ending comments there.
All right. Well, thank you everybody so much for tuning in and staying with us through this entire event. You heard Madungus say it. The next InvArch Edu series should be coming out hopefully within 2 weeks. So as soon as it's released, we'll let it marinate for a few days with the community and provide you guys another live reading. So until then, guys, just stay doing what you've been doing. To our community members, we want to thank you guys once again. You guys have been awesome. Making sure you guys have been active in the community. I've been getting a lot of DMs lately, just expressing hype about the project and the way that the direction is going. So just know that I do appreciate all the support that you guys have been showing us. It doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you guys so much. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. This video is about to an hour now. So have a good rest of your all's week, guys. And don't forget to catch the weekly Wednesday coming out later this evening.
Take care, guys.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Everyone. Thank you.